Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, October 28th, and we are joined by our all-star panel of local journalists, Ryan P. Cruz of The Independent, Josh Molina of Newshawk and Santa Barbara Talk. Somewhere out in the ether is Nick Welsh of The Independent will be joining us, and our very special guest today, Jacob Molina, who is the co-editor-in-chief of the Charger account, the news student news organization at Dos Pueblos High School, who had an exclusive this week, a local story that really touches on a lot of national stuff that's been going on. And we wanted to welcome him in to talk about that briefly. So this involves the artist Kanye West, now known as Ye, who famously has been making anti-Semitic comments. What's the story, Jacob?
Yeah, so we had a senior assembly and students voted to choose the senior song, which is just something played graduation, sort of represents the class. And the Kanye song won. So during the assembly, just played on the speakers. No one seemed to care. But then in the days and weeks following that, there was some student backlash. People went to administration. And within 2 weeks, there was an announcement that there would have to be a revote to change the song.
Okay. And the song is called Touch the Sky, I guess. Is it in itself have anti-Semitic themes or lyrics?
No, the song itself was fine. The song, they found a clean version. They thought the song was fine. No one noticed when they put it on the list of songs to vote for. It was just people sort of realizing after it was chosen, wait, are we really going to have a Kanye song for the senior class? And then they started looking back at past comments and sort of realized the issues.
Yeah, it seems like it started with this fellow Edo Burrell. Is that it? Or
Edo.
Edo, who did bring the anti-Semitic news to the attention of the administration, it sounds like. But I thought a really interesting point that you raised in your piece was, you quoted another student who's saying, we ought to be able to separate the art from the artist, which of course is the whole underlying issue of a lot of cancel culture debate and stuff. Are you hearing that from anyone else, or is there any pushback on this from the students? Hey, we voted for this, we want to keep it this way.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a common thing. It's almost this indifference about the issue, which creates this frustration of why do we have to go through all this trouble to change a song that someone clearly likes, that the class likes, at least they like the song itself. So people, yeah, there are quite a few students who basically are frustrated that this even has to happen. They're saying the song isn't problematic. And if the students voted for it, shouldn't they be allowed to do what they want? But there's at least equal pushback on the other side saying that I wouldn't feel comfortable with this song. We can't have this sort of song representing us.
So given that, what's the next step? What's going to happen next?
So they already made a big announcement for all the seniors to do a revote. They thought of just going with the runner-up, but decided to just have everyone vote again. Hopefully they'll get a higher voter turnout this time. And so people are going to vote. The voting's already closed, but they haven't announced the new winner.
Yeah, and presumably the Horst Wessel song isn't done or anything like that. But where did the list of songs come from?
The list of songs was student nominations. So students could nominate a song. It went to the senior class officers and then got approved by admin. And that was the form that went out for the senior assembly.
Yeah. I'm wondering here, the biggest mystery to this is how in the world did your story happen to appear on Newshawk?
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, I'll answer that one if you don't mind. Newshawk has a long-standing partnership with the local high schools to share content, and Dos Pueblos is one of those schools. And so occasionally we'll run their content. And in this case, because it's a Kanye West controversy and we're seeing everybody talking about Kanye West, from Adidas to Instagram to all of these corporations, it's kind of interesting that, hey, this controversy is playing out at this local school.
Yeah, and I mean the guy obviously is mentally ill. from all indications, and he's talked a lot about being bipolar. Is there sympathy for him, Jacob? Do you think among students, or saying he's getting a raw deal here?
I think there's generally very little awareness of a lot of it from students. When the song played in the assembly, it was almost like no one really cared. I'm sure some people weren't happy about it, but I mean, everyone seemed to be loving it, playing on the speakers in the auditorium. So I think what happened was they kind of heard the announcement, kind of have an awareness of what occurred, maybe have some awareness of his mental conditions, but I don't think that there's really anyone who's trying to justify it on that basis. There's pretty much a universal hatred of Kanye. The only debate is just centered around the song.
Who's more popular, Kanye or Kim, would you say, among the student body?
I personally have very little idea, but definitely Kanye's the more talked about figure, definitely more disliked. But I think if I were to ask someone their opinion on Kanye, they would automatically have more to say.
All right. All right. Jacob Molina, thanks so much for taking a couple of minutes. I know you got to get out of here. We appreciate it. And we'll have you back when we figure out what the next senior song is and see if the controversy is percolating anymore. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. While we await Nick's arrival, here he is.
Josh, you be a proud papa,
Huh?
proud newsman.
I didn't even
Yeah,
know what
boy,
you were working on until I read it, Brian. Come on.
Did you? It smacked of your kind of lead.
The Molina lead.
Yeah.
Hey, my leads are Ryan's kind of leads. Hey, that's just good leads. It doesn't matter if
Boy,
Ryan's-
did you miss out, Nick. We just had Jacob Molina on. Reporting about his exclusive story on Kanye West.
I saw that.
I mean, I think Josh could tell you I've been a Kanye West fan most of my life, but this last couple of weeks I had to separate my. I can't even look at it, listen to anything anymore. It's pretty upsetting, and to see someone going through something and alive, a manic state kind of on the news and doing the run, and how everybody's kind of feeding it. It's kind of disgusting, but it's
well, and particularly to see a billionaire doing it who has the resources to really carry on.
Well, I think just real quickly, if Kanye were in our lives, if he were our friend, we would reel him in.
I would hope so.
Stop communicating. Get off social media. You're having a mental health episode. It does not justify your horrible anti-Semitic comments, not at all. But it's sad that when you're in the public eye, there's just this bam, 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 exploitation, feeding frenzy. But if he were a real person, we would put him somewhere where he can get the help he needs.
Yeah.
You can't help somebody who's racist. Obviously, he feels that way, but it's exacerbated by the fact that we have this double standard, right? About celebrities and all of that. So it's definitely
he may
a
not
sad
be
thing.
somebody who a friend can rein in. I mean, he may be so far gone.
This is the guy who has a song called "Can't Tell Me Nothing," right? So
well, and I mean, he is being totally exploited. I mean, that twit Tucker Carlson has him.
Oh man, yeah. Tucker Carlson having him on, it's just adding to the
political. All right. I just want to say a quick word about COVID. 129 new cases, but 23 hospitalizations and 4 in the ICU, which is pretty steady state of figures. So, we all know the cases are being underreported because of the way the testing's gone. And so, it's still a serious thing. It's still out there. So don't forget to get your vaccine. All right, let's talk about schools. We got the test scores. The California Department of Education released test scores for all the schools in the state for performance through the pandemic, and they were not so great. Nick, talk about that a little bit, and then I also want to, and Josh and Ryan jump in on this, talk about this literacy issue and whether that's a solution for anything.
Well, yeah, we got the proficiency score from the state and federal governments this week. And as expected, students are not performing at level, and they are dropping at where they're expected to be. So across the board, at the state level, I think they're saying this is we've lost the last 14 years of progress, and at the federal level, they're saying we lost the last 30 years of progress. And this is sort of a Rorschach test that's allowing people who want to relitigate the COVID wars go,
Right.
well, see, if you hadn't done this, or if you did do this, and I think it's kind of a waste of effort at this point. You can argue the numbers any way you want. I mean, it's interesting that LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, is actually one of the bright spots in the country, where they have seen, where the drop was less, and there's been actually some improvements. And certainly LAUSD has been part of the whole California shutdown experiment response.
But Santa Barbara's relatively decline was relatively small, or at least modest.
We had a soft landing compared to the state national numbers. I think we had a 9% drop in math scores, and we had a 6% drop in literacy from pre-COVID, and those are significant numbers. I think when you talk to people who are teaching and people who are working in the schools, I just think that if you don't have kids in schools and you're not living that experience, it's just impossible to understand the dislocation and the trauma inflicted by COVID on the educational process. People were having a hard time hanging on, fell off. And the question is, can we bring them back? But
yeah. I mean, it's interesting, somebody with a newspaper that identifies community heroes ought to give one to Sherry Ray and Moni DeWitt, who have kept this issue of literacy front and center, or at least to the extent that they could. I mean, they've just been really
that's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one. I mean, if you look at our third grade numbers, so with literacy, third grade's kind of a key fork in the road point. And if you're behind at third grade, it's much, much harder after that to catch up. And less than 40% of our third graders are reading at level, or and if you look at 11th graders, you're about 10% more than that reading at grade level. So it's the picture on literacy is should be a warning to everybody. I mean, I think that I hate to use the word racism, but I think there's sort of a racist element here, where over the years there's always been a tale of two Santa Barbara districts, and there's the white and Asian districts, where most kids are not doing pretty well, they're doing really well, or they're doing very well. But if you look at everybody else, they're lucky to keep their head above water.
Yeah.
And people have just sort of accepted this as like, well, that's just the way it is. And why are you getting excited? That's just the way it is. And what I'm hoping here is that maybe these numbers will help people say, no, that isn't just the way it is, and it isn't the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And Josh, your favorite administrator, Hilda Maldonado, has now, I guess, put together this literacy task force that's going to look at all the different theories of teaching, reading, and so on. Is that what is your sense of how effective? Is that just window dressing, or is there something substantive that's going to come out of that?
Well, I don't know enough about it. I have not reported on it. I think that just based off what you said, that's a good thing. I think trying to assemble a team of professionals to try to look at these issues sounds like a step in the right direction, but I don't know much. I haven't written about it.
All right.
I just hope that
I'll jump in on that one, just because Gene Yamamura from The Independent covered the task force meeting last night. And, you know, there's a huge debate taking place nationally on how the best way to teach students how to read, particularly K-3. And there's an increasing consensus that a phonics-based approach at that age is really critical. And there's a huge number of school districts, Santa Barbara's included, that haven't been phonics free, but they have not had the degree
No,
of
it's really
emphasis.
been minimized in the
It's
Lucy
more
Talk.
like phonics light. And so we are seeing the beginnings of a upwelling, or what may become an upwelling, over that issue.
Yeah.
People
yeah.
who attended, who
Yeah.
are sort of the leaders of the phonics crusade, were a little bit frustrated, I think, by these meetings. And the first meeting they went to, it was a lot of Post-its and 15 minutes of visualization. I think that it's an opportunity, and we don't know which way it's going to go yet.
All right, Ryan, you were going to say something about the literacy thing.
Yeah,
I
just hope
I
that
want to ask you about Narcan.
Yeah, I just hope these talks are constructive, and we all know that kids struggle during COVID, and I hope that we can look to how to help these kids learn how to read instead of blaming who is in fault for these kids falling behind. Or we're at a point where, you know, COVID was hard for all of us. COVID was hard for me to get through schooling and stuff. COVID was hard for everybody, and I think we have to find a way to meet these kids where they can read and things that engage them, and really not have a fight over who's at fault or who needs to lead the way and needs the credit. I hope that just the end goal is.
I invite you to review the public comment from the last 52.
Yeah, oh, there's plenty of that.
All right, so the other school story this week, Ryan, you had about Narcan in the schools, which, you know, Wendy Sims Moten, you know, said this is sad. This is, I mean, it really is, but on the other hand, it's kind of a pretty good idea, I guess.
It really is, and it's sad that we have to have it, but you know, it's a good thing and something that everybody can agree on. Having that on hand, it's pretty cost-free, $70 per dose, and 1 dose for every school that has less than 500 students, 2 doses for every school that has more than 500 students. We do see teenagers overdosing from time to time, and that's kind of where it's good to have this, just in case. You don't want anything to happen, God forbid anything to happen to any kid in our schools, but this is the world we're living in, and fentanyl has, you know, really grown out there. And I don't want to, you know, fearmonger and say it's in kids' Halloween candy, but younger kids are able to get drugs, and high school age kids, junior high kids are able to get drugs on the street, and they're able to use it, and we need to have this stuff available. It's kind of a no-brainer. Very sad that we have to do it, definitely. But was it
your story where you talked about the spike in fentanyl deaths?
Oh yeah, there's been a spike in fentanyl deaths worldwide and or countrywide, and the first time ever the CDC reported over 1,000 deaths in 2021 from ages 14 to 18, which was alarming for me because, you know, in 2010 I believe it was around 100 or very low, and just to see that number go up to over 1,000 kids a year are dying from opioid overdose, that's alarming.
All right, let's talk about housing a little bit. Josh, you got this story, yet another new state law, which kind of, I don't know if it was under the radar. We didn't pay much attention to it. Is going to really have a huge impact on the parking situation as we begin to construct more housing. What's that all about?
So Governor Newsom signed a bill, I think it's 2307, basically removes local control over parking requirements for developments, both commercial, housing, retail, within a half mile of a train station or a transit stop where you have 15-minute buses. And so this is a thing developers love because they're constantly talking about how difficult it is for them to build parking, and if they didn't have to plan for parking, they could build more housing units. And so we've seen developers build stackers to require or try to get stackers approved in the planning process to make up for the parking you need. So this is a significant deal. obviously people who complain about affordable housing and workforce housing projects are going to say, well, people are going to have cars and they're going to park somewhere, and this is going to really be bad for neighborhoods. So downtown, there's already a zone of benefit, so the parking requirement is waived if you can park in the city lots. But this would affect sort of the funk zone, right? That's a huge thing that would affect
Yeah, I
any
was gonna ask,
project.
so
in the
how
funk
many
zone.
areas does it affect?
Well, the city and SB are trying to figure this out. I talked to Dan Golet, who's a city planner, and he said, we don't know. They were sort of surprised by the signing of the bill. They are looking to see what this means for their local projects, because the developers want to go retroactive. They want to say, hey, if my project's been approved and I haven't built it yet, I don't want to have to build this parking. So they're trying to evaluate that. SB Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, is not trying to, their planners are mapping out where these locations are that are near these train stations and these bus stations to see exactly what would happen. But this is not to overstate it or be hyperbolic, but could be a radical change for local control and development and housing, and not just in Santa Barbara. This is a statewide bill. So I think we're going to see a lot of excitement from the developers. I got a comment from everybody's favorite at St. George, and he talked about his views on that as well. Some of the other developers are kind of waiting and seeing before they comment because they don't want to get out ahead of themselves, but they're very optimistic while the city's trying to figure out a way to see how it makes sense for their local control.
Yeah, Nick, there's no greater champion of bikes than yourself. But I got to tell you, my first story in 1974 about the San Francisco Municipal Railway. Well, we're going to get people out of their cars, and we're going to not build parking lots. Go to San Francisco today. It's just gridlock completely. This is not a good idea, I don't think. Do you?
Well, let me respond to you there. On the bike thing. I mean, one of the things that's happening now is that we have really seen an increase in bike use over the last couple of years. In part, COVID drove it, and the emergence of the electric bike as a viable option. And you are seeing a lot more people out on the roads on bikes. And so we're experiencing the I hate electric bike backlash. We're seeing that on State Street. Next Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors are going to be dealing with a big controversy, bike lane versus trees on Modoc Road. And so what we're seeing is that bikes have become sufficiently successful that they are making people mad, which is really a sign of that we have come somewhere in a perverse way. There's if you're a parent who is driving your kids to school, a bike right now isn't doing it, but electric bikes with the tandem, you're seeing a lot of parents using those now. So I don't know what the flexibility of getting people out of their cars is, but it's a lot more than what we're doing now. And I can't speak to how many of the people in gridlock in San Francisco are single drivers, but I bet a pretty large percent.
Yeah. And Ryan, one good thing on the bike front, they got rid of the green lanes, I guess, huh? Those are gone.
They're gone for now. We're going to see, like Nick said, there's going to be a kind of experiment going on State Street to see what works, what doesn't. A lot of heated emotion on both sides. Some people want cars back. Some people want bikes, but don't want those e-bikes there, which would be, I wouldn't want to be the one enforcing no e-bikes and going and separating the bikes from the e-bikes. But, we're going to see over the next couple months and year what's going to happen with this downtown situation.
Yeah. And Josh, one area where this would really affect, or at least one project, or if not more, is the lead of your BizHawk column today. The Tri-County Produce property has been sold, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, this is a really big business story. John Dixon, the longtime owner of Tri-County Produce, has partnered, sold the real estate where his business sits, and he sold it to a team of local investors, Austin Herlihy among them, and he's got a team of investors, and John Dixon's one of them, and they are basically beginning the process for saying, hey, we're going to turn this into something else. Tri-County Produce is going to stay. It takes a long time for these development projects to go through, but the property sold for $9.7 million. And I think the obvious thing that they're looking at, although they're not being specific, is this is going to be side of a big housing project.
Now, don't we need another luxury hotel though? Really, more than
It's right there by the beach. You know that $9 million is a lot to have a produce store there.
Oh,
what were you
man.
gonna say, Nick?
Yeah, it's just really sad. That was, there's a sentimental connection between that Tri-County and the community that a lot of, grocery stores and food produce shops just don't have. I mean, they really are embedded in the heart of Santa Barbara, and that news was really depressing to read. And you look at Austin Herlihy, who was one of the investors. Austin Herlihy is a very prominent real estate guy, and not to pick on him, but his projects tend to wind up being the sort that rent for $5,000 a month. So they don't really fit anywhere remotely in the area code of affordable or for most people. And so it looks like it's going to be a very high-end deluxe housing project down the road.
Well, I mean, not to defend Austin here, but I think that this is not something he's doing through Radius. This is a commercial venture that he and partners are doing, and I think they're aware of Tri-County Produce's impact on the community. So who knows, Nick? Maybe in 10 years we'll be here talking about how it's super high-end luxury.
I'm willing to.
It might not.
I'm willing to bet that we're going to see a 3 to 4 story white stucco, red tile housing project with 10% affordable in the next couple of years over there.
But you know what they might do? They might keep a produce stand there.
That'd be great. We're losing. We got maybe Lassen's. We have farmers markets, but it is tough to see these things go. And we do need housing, which is the city's in a tough spot where we need housing, and the boards, they have to approve housing that comes across. But it is sad when you hear some places that, this place sold, and not saying that it's going to turn into that, but this is the direction we're going.
Yeah, you left out the massive traffic jams around it because there's no parking, with 2 people riding electric bikes on the way back.
Well, you can just walk to Sprouts. You can just bike to Milpas. Who needs parking, Jerry?
Oh, God. All right. Let's talk about the county stuff a little bit. Ryan, your story on this controversy has been going on for some time, on the extent of the sheriff's department's cooperation with ICE, and there's an annual report on how many released prisoners get sort of swooped up by ICE because the sheriff blows the whistle that they're coming out.
Yeah, so part of the Truth and Values Act, every year, it's a state act, so every year the county has to report how many times they have worked with ICE it's kind of a collaboration where they let you know when the undocumented person is going to be released. They let ICE know, and ICE, they used to be there in the parking lot, and they used to be released out into the main lobby, and that was kind of one of the confusing parts or controversial parts, is this pickup versus transfer, where a direct transfer is straight from our police or our sheriff's custody to ICE custody, where we're in this gray area where they used to release them to the parking lot and ICE would be waiting there, or maybe they wouldn't and they'd pick them up at their home. But now it's a backdoor situation where ICE is actually let onto the facility in their back door. They're told what time, what date they're leaving, and then this person is only allowed to walk through the backdoor exit they're not allowed to go through the main lobby parking lot anymore.
But
And it's-
in the last year is a relatively small number of.
Yeah, it's gone down a lot. It was in the hundreds. It was about, when this program first started a couple years ago, it was about 300 pickups or more. Now it's 6, which is not very many. They list what their charges were, and they're violent. They're violent.
These are
offenders.
bad. These are bad guys, right?
Yeah, they're repeat offenders, violent offenders. But there's also when you live in Santa Barbara and you commit an assault, you do your time for that assault, right? And you go home. And I think that's where these organizations are coming from, where you do an assault, but now you get sent. Now you have to leave the country, and that's it's a tricky area with undocumented, because there's a lot of things that can trip something of them getting deported. And where is that line, and where are we comfortable as a community saying, well, that's a bad guy, we don't need him in our community, or that's a bad guy, we don't need him in America?
I'll be glad to tell you where I'm uncomfortable. Just show me the rap sheet.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that struck me was I think that this act has really made a difference. I mean,
yeah, this act has definitely forced that accountability, and they have to do this report every year. And it's good to see that the numbers going down. And I think our sheriff's office is doing the best job they can, and not just, oh, this guy is undocumented, so let's send him home. These are all very case by case basis. You can see by the 6 ones listed in the latest report, but there are a lot of people pushing, it's a humanitarian issue. Do they deserve to be deported for this? And maybe they do. And it's just like Sheriff Brown said, this is not done yet. This is something that he kind of put the pressure on the federal government to kind of take it off of himself, of the government needs to do something better. But I think from local to higher up, there's different things that can be looked at.
Ryan, let me ask you this. Do you agree with Nick in the ultimate perfectibility of man, or do you agree with me that civilization must be regulated, and that's the reason we have?
I'm somewhere down the middle, depending on how my mood is. But you watch the news, and sometimes you think we got our hope is lost. But there's still, I really do think that every person, and this is for personal experience, just because you made mistakes in life, just because you end up in jail, just because you end up on the wrong side of the law, doesn't mean you don't deserve a chance, doesn't mean you don't deserve a chance to live here in America, in California, and a chance to be here in Santa Barbara. So, it's a very sticky situation of
right,
someone.
I'm getting all weepy with Ryan's major policy address here, but let me. But a couple of people who don't think Sheriff Brown is doing such a great job about anything are at least 3 members of the Board of Supervisors, and they're fighting with Brown now about sheriff's overtime and morale and the inability to hire people. It sounds like kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's a separate item, and it is a mess. Every year, the board of supervisors are asked by Sheriff Bill Brown, hey, you know what? We've had to spend more on overtime than we thought. We need you to bail us out. And the board has to pay for the sheriff, but Bill Brown, being an independently elected official, gets to run his department the way he sees fit and the way he thinks is best. And how he sees that and how the supervisors see that don't always line up. And it's gotten increasingly tense in recent years, and they're getting really frustrated. Like, Bill, give us some data so we can figure out what's driving this. And they can't get the data. And Bill says, well, you haven't given me anybody. You haven't given me any staffing. And he says, the supervisor said, here's the money. Go hire that person. So this time around, he's hired those people, but they haven't got their act together yet. So they're getting really frustrated. This was like an intervention by the Board of Supervisors on Bill. We're really frustrated. We need to know what's going on. But underneath it, there's a lot of stuff underneath it. The supervisors got bombarded by this letter writing campaign by sheriff's deputies and custody deputies. And if
Sheriff's
you
deputies
it would make you cry.
who contributed handsomely to all of their campaigns. So they're
it was, people are working, 11, 12 day shifts 12 hours a day, every 2 weeks. A lot of mandatory overtime. That doesn't include the hours driving. People are burnt out. People are leaving the department.
And
People
nobody
are-
wants to be a cop now anymore.
Plus,
They
this
can't
is not
recruit
a
them.
happy time, to be a cop.
And a lot of law agencies are hiring. So if you don't live in Santa Barbara, why would you apply to work at Santa Barbara Sheriff? And it's expensive to live here. So if your hometown is hiring, you might join that law enforcement. So everybody's
You can probably get an apartment down by Tri-County Produce. Of course, you'll be late to work because of all the traffic. But
One of the issues is, like, a lot of departments, they have like signing bonuses. It's
Yeah.
like football players. Hey, so if you sign up to be a deputy, here's 20 grand if you make it.
what does that do
I
to
would
the
imagine
old
those
guys
folks-
that have been there,
Well, that's what Bill
exactly.
Brown said. Bill Brown is not using this tool. And some of the supervisors, like Greg Hart, really, I don't get the sense of urgency. You've got 46 vacancies in your department and you're whining and complaining. What are you doing about it?
All right, Josh, I want to leave time so we can talk about politics. But before, can you talk really quickly on whatever happened to City Attorney Ariel Calan?
I can't believe they're down 46 deputies and I still got a ticket for not having my sticker on my car registration, even though it's registered because I lost the registration. But I guess that's another story. Ariel Calan
It sounds
is
to me like a future episode of Santa Barbara Talks, Josh. I don't know.
yeah, sometimes I am my own best guest. I think maybe I should just talk about it myself. Ariel Calan's been missing for more than 3.5 months.
Missing.
Clarify that. He has not been abducted. He's
On
not
the
been,
milk carton. He's on the milk carton.
he's not been at City Hall ever since this incident between him and another attorney, allegedly witnessed by others, and it got intense and possibly aggressive and physical. And so he's been on paid administrative leave. No one's talking. I found out through my sources, no one is talking about this on the record. And so I just thought I'd put a little pressure on them with a where is Ariel Calan type story. Randy's like, I'm his boss and I'm the one who knows and I don't know anything. And then he said, we should have some kind of information by December. So he definitely knows something. I did get the Honorable Frank Hotchkiss, runner-up for mayor back in 2000.
Note of pornographic author. Yeah.
17. Yes, retired erotica writer, as you think you had him on the show. And he was pretty good. He said about, hey, the public needs to know. They need to at least outline some of these terms. He's the city attorney, and Frank's a conservative guy, so he's big on that watchdog government kind of stuff. But I think he's right. I don't think it's right for them to just be like, hey, one of the 2 employees hired by the council is just not here anymore, and everyone needs to just wait.
We're not going to talk about it. Yeah. Exactly.
Ariel did get back to me. He said no comment, but at least I know he knows.
Good.
I know.
That's the biggest comment.
They're all afraid of
Think
being
about anything.
sued. Clearly, this is going to be the threat of litigation is weighing on their minds, and they're not going to say anything that might open them up for this has been prejudged. And
Well, yeah, especially the way the Rob Dayton thing went down, and there was a lot of of embarrassment about that. The
Lever's Edge.
yeah, the personnel stuff came out. Hey, Josh, I read your piece on the Goleta City Council, Seves versus Luce. You know what? If I was going to pick an upset, and the Newsmakers election poll will be out soon, I would say Seves gets reelected. What's your sense of where that one is?
I may be just sort of I may be wrong. I've been wrong once or twice before.
I don't
I
know.
thought Michael Vidal was going to beat Oscar Gutierrez, so there you go. There. But it wasn't that. I mean, it was kind of close. But anyway, I just tend to think that Luz Reyes Martin is.
Did you pick Sharon Byrne against Kathy Murillo?
I have never picked Sharon Byrne, Jerry Roberts.
Oh no, that was
any
me.
political contest.
That was me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that I don't know. The ND I don't think ever endorsed Sharon Byrne either. But Jerry, what were we talking about here?
We were talking about Roger Seves.
Roger Seves. I think Luce is very well connected. The Dem Party's working really hard for her, and I think that she's gonna be formidable. And I have to think she's the front runner. I know Roger's been there forever, 4 terms, and he's very well known and well liked in Goleta. But Roger doesn't campaign very well. I don't see much of what he's doing. I think he's really good, like as a council member and being responsive to constituents. But as we know, winning is not about what you're going to do afterward. Winning is about campaigning. And I think that Luce has more people on the ground. That being said, I would be disappointed to see Roger off the council because I think he's a good council member.
And then, Nick, did you happen to watch Josh on the Salute Carbajal
On the teleprompter.
Brad Allen debate the other night? I thought he was excellent.
You thought Josh was excellent?
Yeah.
Oh, Brad Allen.
I know you both were. I was like,
There's
was
a phrase
watching that
never been
debate,
uttered.
and that was like, how many questions can we ask? It wasn't 20 questions. It was like 120
It was
questions.
speed dating, but
And
no,
it was-
but no follow-ups.
The
No
people need to
follow-ups.
know.
And it was just like, wow. And some of the questions, it was like, I was thinking, how you probably spent 5 times more time figuring out what the questions were than you did in the actual debate. You guys outdid yourself with the question prep.
I have to say, I thought, I know Justin Fareed, and Brad Allen is no Justin Fareed, fortunately. I thought Allen did okay in representing the Republican position. He was pretty strong with his arguments, and it was such a relief to have another candidate, going up against Carbajal. Did you watch it again, Josh? Or did you just fast forward to when you were on?
I might have just reviewed my own performance, Jerry. I realize you're stellar, and you were going to do great, no matter what. So I had to review my own work. I would like to note, for the first and last time ever uttered inside the walls of the Santa Barbara Independent, Nick Welsh just said, "I thought Josh was excellent."
No, that was me.
Is a phrase
That was
I know he
me.
was
That was
repeating.
me.
He was repeating you, but it was
Yeah.
still said. It
But-
was
okay,
still
but here's the
said.
thing.
But there
You
was a
had-
question mark at the end of it.
You had Jerry looking all very dapper and grumpy, and then you had the whole "I'm the rumpled newsroom guy" thing going on. Your tie was down, your shirt was down, your hadn't been
I can't button the tie, so I go that route. And if I go to the larger neck size, my shirt's like this. So I'm just one of those in between bodies. But I did enjoy reading the teleprompter. And Jerry's great. I got to say, Brad Allen, you couldn't see it on camera, but Jerry asked questions, and Brad would turn and he would look at him and he addressed him. So Jerry did a good job with his questions, and he got Brad sort of involved there. And I was just trying to be King Harris.
All right.
This is really a sign of how lame this race is. The fact that we're talking about your questions and nobody's talking about
Any of the answers.
Let me just take 5 minutes to talk about how good
man.
about Scott Hennessy was.
I mean, and Salute. I mean, you could see Salute didn't really.
He's got
waste
to
any
stop
time
with
on
the
prep.
grin. He's got to stop with the grin.
Better
Hey,
call
we didn't
Cruz.
talk about it. He wasn't there. Like,
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I mean, he was
Hey,
cowardly
he
because
zoomed himself in, and then after he had his 30 seconds down, and then he had that grin that he came up with.
that
every single
rictus
time.
grin that is like, well, we're sorry that tens of thousands of people have been massacred in Ukraine. And
It wasn't that bad, Jerry.
come on, jeez, where's Ian Mariani when you need him? All right, Nick, I want to ask you about Monique, but real quick, we did get a email from the great James Cariaco, Goleta City Councilman running for re-election, who we mentioned last week in a critical way about him buying ads, having so much money, and he alleges that he spent less than $5,000 for a 3-week buy of 4 spots per day, and states, I spent more on Newshawk and more on the Independent. So there you have it.
Is he trying to show us how financially responsible he is with his money?
But
With
then he
that
turns
statement? That's
around
not getting
and
any
he
better.
says, he says, Sam, this is Sam Martinez, his opponent, told people he was going to raise over
Years.
30,000. So I believed him, and I had to raise 50,000.
Dude, hey,
So it's all Sam's fault, I guess.
I'm glad he's spending money over here. You know, we have so many people who talk about how they believe in the local journalism, but when it comes time to take out their political ads, it's all social media. So I was happy to have the money come in.
Amen.
And Nick, I don't know if the Independent has Carolina Bates advertising, but Newstalk does.
You know what? I have a hunch we don't.
You got us scooped there.
All right, and then the last thing. Oh, and also he wanted the record to be clear that he's endorsed Joan Hartman for a re-election if she seeks re-election. Of course, he didn't. It was kind of a non-denial denial that he came out with that one. And then Nick, you talked.
Hey, Sam, if you're watching, if you want to send us your little addendum to our conversation, Jerry apparently will read it on air.
You're gonna have
Don't
weight
encourage
sending
these
us
things.
5,000 words now. No, I just that's we're glad for the feedback. Nick, you talked to our great state senator Monique Limon, who decided that Santa Barbara's not a big enough pond for her to be in. She's going to wade into LA politics, calling for Kevin DeLeon to quit the city council there.
Well, it's not quite like that. I mean, we had an interview and the subject came up. It wasn't like this was sort of some edict she felt the need to proclaim, but it came out organically in the course of a conversation where she was actually talking about, everybody sort of says, are you going for this? Or are you running for that? And she was saying, look, the reality is there's so much craziness in Sacramento that people who want to plan their career ladders are just going to be frustrated because you can't, given the chaos that is inherent and endemic of that place. And she cited as an example, the whole racist comments.
Okay, all right.
And so I asked her, well, what do you think? And she said, no, I think he needs to resign. I mean, he broke trust. And it's interesting, she and Kevin DeLeon, the city council member, one of the 3 city council members who's in hot water for the racist remarks that came out in a conversation about redistricting. He cut his teeth in Santa Barbara. He went to UCSB. He had an immigration rights shop on Milpa Street, one-stop shop immigration. I think it was while he was in Santa Barbara that he discovered that the day in his name.
Yeah, he changed his name. He classed up his name. Yeah, that's.
And he is an inventive and creative and ambitious and guy in Sacramento.
Gotta go.
And he's got to go. And it's just like they've launched a recall campaign because Kevin DeLeon is saying, I'm not going. I've got to lead my people.
Yeah, but he also doesn't want. He also can't come to the meetings because there's so much protest about him. So he's asking for a leave of absence. Yeah, that's a good thing.
He's got to go, and he's got to come back later if he can come back at all.
All right. Speaking of gotta go, we gotta go. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get to the bottom of the whole Andy Dick scandal, but maybe we can talk about that one next week. Thanks, Josh Molina and Jacob Molina, Ryan P. Cruz, and Nick Welsh for being with us. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.